The air in the tunnels was stale, a mixture of dust, rust, and decay. Ben's boots echoed softly against the damp concrete floor as he led the way through the darkness, the weak beam of his rifle light barely cutting through the gloom. Liam followed close behind, unusually silent, his eyes scanning the walls and ceiling for any sign of danger. It was strange. Just a few years ago, these tunnels had been bustling with life, part of the old metro system that connected Aetheria's vibrant districts. Now they were a graveyard, a relic of a world that was dying one piece at a time. Ben had seen it all crumble, watched as the Krulax ripped through their defenses like paper, watched as cities fell, one by one. "How far is this place?" Liam asked, his voice low but carrying in the narrow corridor. "Couple of miles if we stick to the metro line," Ben replied. "We'll have to pass through the industrial sector to get there. It won't be easy." Liam snorted softly. When is it ever? They pressed on in silence for a while longer, the sound of their breathing mingling with the distant rumble of explosions above. The Krulax were still hammering the surface, searching for them, no doubt. Ben only hoped they wouldn't think to check the tunnels. Not yet, anyway. They needed more time. As they rounded a corner, the tunnel opened up into a larger chamber. This had once been a bustling underground station, complete with flickering, holographic advertisements, ticket booths, and automated turnstiles. Now, it was a ruin. Shattered screens, broken glass, and debris littered the floor. The ceiling had collapsed in places, leaving gaping holes where shafts of dim light filtered through from the world above. "Hold up!" Ben whispered, raising a hand to stop Liam in his tracks. Liam's hand went to the hilt of his combat blade, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the area. "What is it?" Ben knelt down, studying the ground. Tracks, fresh ones, and not human. "They've been here," Ben muttered, rising to his feet. "Krulax." Liam cursed under his breath. "How many? Hard to say. A patrol, maybe. Could be drones." Ben's grip tightened on his rifle. "But they're close. We keep moving?" Ben considered it for a moment. "No. We set a trap." The chamber was perfect for an ambush. High ceilings, plenty of cover from the rubble, and only two main entrances. If the Krulax were patrolling through here, Ben figured they'd move fast. These tunnels weren't exactly strategic for them, but they could be curious. He and Liam would make sure that curiosity cost them. While Liam worked on rigging up a crude explosive from some of the debris, Ben took up a position behind an old information kiosk, his rifle aimed at the entrance. He adjusted his visor, bringing up a thermal overlay of the chamber. The temperature readings were steady, no signs of movement yet. "This should give them a nice surprise," Liam said quietly, finishing up the explosive device and tucking it under a pile of rubble. "Basic pressure plate. Should go off if anything heavier than us walks over it." Ben nodded. "Good. Now we wait." Minutes passed, each one slower than the last. Ben's pulse quickened every time he thought he heard movement, but nothing came. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, too quiet, too still. The Krulax weren't exactly known for subtlety. Then from the tunnel to the left came the unmistakable whir of mechanical joints and the faint glow of alien lights. Ben's visor flickered, picking up several thermal signatures moving through the darkness. They were coming. "Here they come," he whispered. Liam's hand hovered over the hilt of his blade, his eyes sharp as the first Krulak drone emerged from the shadows. It was sleek, with insect-like limbs and a glowing red eye that scanned the area. Behind it, more drones followed, half a dozen at least, maybe more. They moved in perfect unison, silently spreading out as they entered the chamber. Ben's finger tightened on the trigger, but he didn't fire. Not yet. He waited, watched as the drones approached the rubble pile where Liam's trap lay hidden. Just a few more steps, the lead drone stepped onto the pressure plate, and there was a brief, almost imperceptible click. Then, a deafening explosion rocked the chamber, sending a shock wave through the air. The drones were blown back, their mechanical limbs torn apart by the blast. "Now!" Ben shouted. He sprang up from his cover, pulse rifle blazing as he fired into the remaining drones. Liam was a blur beside him, charging forward with his blade drawn, slicing through the Krulak machines with brutal efficiency. Sparks flew, and metal clanged against metal as they tore through the enemy, the echoes of battle filling the chamber. Within moments, it was over. The last of the drones fell to the ground in a smoking heap, its red eye flickering out as its systems shut down. Ben lowered his rifle, breathing hard as he surveyed the wreckage. Nice work, Liam said, wiping blood from his blade. Not as fun as taking down Krulax, but I'll take it. Ben didn't respond, his eyes fixed on the tunnel ahead. They'd won this round, but the real fight was still to come. The archives were close now, but so were the Krulax. He could feel it. We need to move, Ben said, his voice tense. This was just the beginning. Ben and Liam pressed forward, deeper into the bowels of the city's forgotten tunnels. The air grew colder, the oppressive silence only broken by the faint hum of old ventilation systems, struggling to remain functional. Every step took them closer to the archives, but Ben's instincts told him that more danger awaited them. The tunnel narrowed, forcing them to move single file. Liam took point this time, his blade drawn and ready, while Ben kept an eye on their six. They couldn't afford to be ambushed again. The Krulak drones had been just a scouting party, a taste of what was to come. If the Krulaks knew what lay in the archives, they would stop at nothing to get it, and that made their mission even more critical. As they navigated through the winding corridors, Liam broke the silence. What do you think's in the archives? I mean, really? You're the one who's always in the know, Ben. So spill. Ben kept his voice low. It's more than just data or technology. The archives house records from Aetheria's golden age. Information about the experiments they were running before the fall. Some of it's dangerous. If the Krulaks get their hands on it, they'll weaponize it against us. Liam's brow furrowed. Dangerous how? Ben hesitated. He wasn't sure how much to tell Liam. His friend was a warrior, not a strategist. But Liam had earned his trust over years of fighting side by side. There was a project, codenamed Paragon. It was a last-ditch effort to develop a countermeasure to the Krulaks before the invasion started. The scientists never got the chance to finish it. Countermeasure? Liam's voice held a note of hope. Like a weapon? Maybe, or something more than that, Ben replied, his mind working through the possibilities. The Krulaks have superior technology, but they're not invincible. Whatever's in the archives could be the key to turning this war around. But we need to get there first. Liam let out a low whistle. So we're talking big stakes, huh? No pressure. Ben's expression hardened. No pressure at all. They reached an old maintenance hatch that led into the industrial sector. Once a thriving area of Aetheria, now a labyrinth of collapsed factories and abandoned production lines. Ben pried open the rusted hatch, and they climbed up into the ruins above. The stench of burning metal and decay filled the air as they emerged into the cold gray light of the surface. The industrial sector was worse than Ben remembered. Massive factory complexes, once towering symbols of Aetherian ingenuity, were now skeletal remains, their rusted frames creaking in the wind. Conveyor belts and machinery lay scattered across the ground, twisted and broken. In the distance, the remains of an old power plant belched black smoke into the sky, one of the few structures still operational, though Ben suspected it had been repurposed by the Krulaks for something far more sinister. This place gives me the creeps, Liam muttered, surveying the landscape. Feels like we're being watched. Ben didn't respond immediately. He felt it too. The weight of unseen eyes, the sense that they were not alone. The Krulaks were out here somewhere, hunting them. But there was something else, something more primal, lurking beneath the surface. We need to be quick, Ben said, motioning for Liam to follow. The archives are in the city core, just past this sector. If we move fast and stay low, we might avoid. A sudden, high-pitched screech echoed through the air, cutting him off mid-sentence. Ben's pulse quickened as he scanned the horizon. The noise was unnatural, metallic, but not Krulak. What the hell was that? Liam whispered, gripping his blade tighter. Ben shook his head. I don't know, but we need to. Before he could finish, the ground beneath them trembled, and a massive shape burst from the ruins ahead. It was enormous, easily the size of a tank, with metallic plating and insect-like legs that clawed at the ground as it moved. Its body was covered in jagged armor, and its head, a mechanical construct with glowing red eyes, swiveled toward them, letting out another screech. Krulak war beast, Ben shouted, pulling Liam down behind a pile of debris as the creature charged. The ground shook with each step the beast took, its powerful legs crushing everything in its path. It moved with terrifying speed, its armor gleaming in the dim light. Ben's mind raced. This wasn't just another patrol unit. The Krulax had sent something far deadlier to track them. "We can't fight that thing head-on," Ben called out, his voice barely audible over the screeching metal and pounding feet of the war beast. "Tell me something I don't know," Liam shouted back, ducking as a chunk of debris flew overhead, smashed aside by the creature's claws. Ben glanced around, searching for anything that could give them an edge. His pulse rifle wouldn't penetrate that armor, not at this range, and Liam's blade was useless against something this massive. They had to outsmart it. "There!" Ben pointed to an old fuel silo, half collapsed but still standing, its surface riddled with cracks. "We bring it down on top of it. Follow my lead." Liam didn't hesitate. "Let's do it!" They broke cover and sprinted toward the silo, the war beast's screech echoing behind them as it gave chase. Ben's heart pounded in his chest, every step sending a fresh wave of adrenaline through his veins. The creature was closing in fast, its massive claws digging into the ground just behind them. "Keep running!" Ben shouted, pushing himself harder. They reached the base of the silo, and Ben immediately began firing at the support beams. The first few shots sparked harmlessly off the rusted metal, but then one of the beams gave way with a loud creak. The entire structure groaned in protest, teetering dangerously. "Liam, now!" Ben called out. With a grunt, Liam drove his blade into the weakened structure, and the silo finally gave way. There was a deafening crash as the metal tower collapsed, toppling directly onto the war beast. The creature let out a final furious screech as it was buried beneath tons of debris, its red eyes flickering and finally going dark. Ben stood there panting, his pulse still racing. The beast was down, but they couldn't afford to stick around. "We've got to keep moving," he said, turning to Liam. Liam wiped sweat from his brow and sheathed his blade. "I swear, every time I think this mission can't get any crazier..." Ben allowed himself a brief smile. "It's only going to get worse." Together they pressed on, moving swiftly through the ruins of the industrial sector. The city core and the archives were just ahead, but the closer they got, the more Ben felt the weight of the mission pressing down on him. The war beast had been a warning. The Krulax knew they were coming, and whatever lay in the archives was worth dying for.